Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, no matter what time zone you are in right now. Welcome back to Sip and Talk. I'm Joe.
I'm Sunny.
Good morning. So I got to ask, does your morning Americano have any weird, unverified oils added to it today?
Oh man, haha, no. I can assure you my coffee is strictly black. There are definitely no weird additives in this mug.
Good, because I was scrolling through social media recently, and people are just hypersensitive about oil right now. The online arguments have almost reached this level of a dark comedy.
Yeah, I've absolutely been following that news you're hinting at. A lot of our Taiwanese listeners have actually been asking for our take on this massive edible oil controversy over there.
Right, and it's honestly such a fascinating case study.
It really is. We are talking about a Taiwanese cooking oil that was officially flagged for exceeding the safety limits of a known carcinogen, this thing called benzopyrene.
Right, which sounds terrible.
It does. But here's the wild punchline. If you took that exact same quote-unquote toxic batch of oil and evaluated it under China's GB 2716 national standard, it would be considered a completely legal premium product.
It really highlights the total absurdity of regulatory borders, And what's even crazier is that the political fallout inside Taiwan completely bypassed the manufacturer's actual quality control failure.
Oh, entirely. It just instantly mutated into this massive partisan war between the opposition and the ruling party.
Exactly. So that is exactly where we are starting today on Sip and Talk. We're going to unpack this whole food safety meme war to see what happens when, scientific dosage collides with political emotion.
And we'll figure out who actually profits from all that chaos. After that, we'll bring the lens right back home to our own backyard.
Yeah, because we need to talk about our own systems.
We do. We're going to break down how our U.S. regulatory system, specifically our FDA and our USDA, actually operate. Because a lot of Americans don't realize that our rules were not born from proactive planning.
No, they were written in blood.
Exactly. They were driven by massive public health tragedies. And then finally, we will zoom out to the 2026 macro landscape.
Oh, the macro stuff is wild right now. We're looking at this brutal new reality of geopolitics, massive supply chain restructuring, and of course, the shocking breakup of the Magnificent Seven tech giants.
Yeah, it's a very high-pressure, high-opportunity rhythm in the market right now. We'll look at where the smart capital is actually moving, but let's jump into the toxic oil controversy first.
Let's do it.
We really need to look at the underlying math here to understand how these information walls create a completely false sense of superiority on social media.
The numbers are just staggering when you look at them side by side. So the compound in question is benzopyrene, or BP.
Right.
It's basically a chemical byproduct that forms naturally during high heat processing, like when you're roasting or frying stuff.
Which happens all the time in food manufacturing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, Taiwan aligns its food safety regulations with the incredibly strict European Union standards. They cap BP at 2.0 micrograms per kilogram. That's essentially like 2 parts per billion.
Super strict.
Very. And the Taiwanese company at the center of this whole storm, Zhonglian, shipped oil that tested at about 8.0.
Wow.
Yeah. So mathematically, they are 4 times over the legal limit in their own jurisdiction.
Which, that sounds like a massive public health emergency,
Yeah.
right until you look across the strait.
Exactly.
China's national standard for BP is 10.0 micrograms per kilogram. You had all these Chinese netizens swarming social media, mocking Taiwan for eating toxic oil, claiming their entire food safety network had collapsed.
And they were totally clueless.
Completely unaware that their own government's legal limit is 5 times more lenient than Taiwan's strict 2.0 cap.
It's like, think about like a guy speeding down a highway at 120 miles per hour, pointing and laughing at a driver who just got a ticket for doing 85 on an 80-mile-per-hour road.
That is a perfect analogy.
The guy doing 120 is just screaming about how dangerous the other driver is, completely oblivious to the fact that his own rules are structurally far looser and, inherently way more dangerous.
All right, and that psychological blind spot is exactly what drives these meme wars.
Oh, totally.
When the general public lacks the underlying toxicology data to evaluate actual risk, they just default to outgroup derogation. It's a well-documented defense mechanism.
It's easier than reading the science.
Way easier. These complex scientific debates about parts per billion just get flattened into this binary narrative of we are righteous and healthy versus they are toxic and ignorant.
Yeah, it gives the crowd a very cheap, very fast sense of group identity. But, the absurdity did not stop with just the cross-strait internet arguments.
Oh, definitely not.
Inside Taiwan, the political hijacking of this chemical data was incredibly swift. I mean, nobody was focusing on Zonglian.
The actual company at fault.
Right. The company that falsified its self-testing data to push the oil out the door in the first place. The whole issue was instantly weaponized for political leverage.
Yeah, the blue and white opposition coalition staged a massive protest on July 25th right on Ketagalan Boulevard, demanding the entire cabinet step down.
Wait, the whole cabinet?
The whole cabinet. They weren't proposing new legislation for tighter factory oversight or better laboratory testing protocols.
No, of course not.
They went straight for the political jugular, accusing the ruling DPP government of acting as a deliberate guardian for these black-hearted companies.
And the DPP, naturally, immediately threw up their own defenses. They started pointing fingers at the local city governments for failing to conduct timely municipal inspections.
Classic deflection.
Yeah. They accused the opposition of deliberately turning a localized scientific enforcement issue into this massive national political stunt.
And, in an environment of extreme political polarization like that, the negligent manufacturer is the only real winner.
That is the sad truth.
Zonglian successfully hid behind the partisan crossfire. While the public and the politicians were busy screaming at each other over resignations, the corporate executives who actually cooked the data and shipped the contaminated oil just got a massive breather from public scrutiny.
That political theater is wild. But before we act superior, let's look at our own backyard.
Oh, yeah. We are not immune.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Americans tend to have this blind, unwavering faith in our FDA. We see that official government stamp of approval and just assume we're perfectly protected by this proactive shield.
Right, which is just not reality.
No. Our system is fundamentally reactive. We actually operate on a dual-track system here in the U.S., with our USDA and our FDA operating under completely different enforcement philosophies.
Yeah, let's break that down. So our USDA handles meat, poultry, and eggs, and their philosophy is built on absolute zero tolerance.
They don't mess around.
They really don't. They literally have federal inspectors physically standing on the slaughterhouse floor, watching the processing line every single day. If something looks even slightly wrong, they have the immediate authority to stop the line.
But then there's our FDA.
Right. Our FDA handles the remaining 80% of our food supply. Produce, dairy, processed snacks, you name it. And they operate on a risk-based post-market surveillance model.
Which basically means they're always a step behind.
Exactly. They just do not have the manpower to check every single factory, so they monitor the market after products are already on the shelves.
And we also have the GRAS loophole.
Oh, GRS.
Yeah, GRS stands for Generally Recognized as Safe.
Because the FDA can't test everything, a company can sometimes introduce a brand new food additive simply by funding their own internal science.
Which is definitely not a conflict of interest at all.
Haha, not at all. They conclude it's safe and then just self-report that status to our FDA to bypass rigorous, independent pre-market testing.
It's crazy. They are heavily relying on corporate honor, basically, until people start winding up in the emergency room.
And unfortunately, the strict rules we do have on the books today only exist because of massive systemic failures. There are basically three specific tragedies that fundamentally built our modern U.S. food safety architecture.
Yeah.
The first one is the 1993 Jack in the Box E. coli outbreak.
Oh, that was horrific. 4 young children died because of undercooked burger patties, and hundreds more were left with permanent kidney damage.
Yeah.
And people forget, before 1993, meat inspection was largely visual. Inspectors would literally just look at and smell the meat.
That's insane to think about now.
I know.
That tragedy forced our USDA to completely change the science of meat processing. They legally classified the specific E. coli 0157-H7 strain as an adulterant in ground beef.
Right, which changed everything.
It did. That specific legal classification meant that even a microscopic trace of the bacteria made the meat illegal to sell. It basically forced the entire global meat industry to adopt advanced microbiological testing overnight.
And then you look at the FDA side. And the 2008 Peanut Corporation of America salmonella outbreak just totally exposes the dark side of the honor system.
Oh, Stuart Parnell.
Yeah. The CEO, Stuart Parnell, received independent lab reports explicitly showing his peanut butter was heavily contaminated with salmonella. And he sent an email to his plant manager saying, literally, ship it.
Just blatant negligence.
9 people died, and over 700 were sickened.
But Parnell's decision triggered a uniquely American consequence. He didn't just get a slap on the wrist or a corporate fine. He was sentenced to 28 years in federal prison.
Which is basically a life sentence for a guy his age.
Yeah, it remains the heaviest criminal sentence ever handed down to a corporate executive in U.S. history for a food safety violation.
Wow.
And that blatant disregard for human life forced Washington to finally act. Congress passed the Food Safety Modernization Act, or FSMA, in 2011.
Because before that, they had no real teeth.
None. Before FSMA, our FDA literally had to ask companies nicely to voluntarily pull contaminated food off the shelves. FSMA finally gave our government mandatory recall authority.
But even with those new powers, our supply chains remain just incredibly fragile. Just look at the Abbott baby formula crisis in 2022.
That was a nightmare.
A factory in Michigan got contaminated with Chronobacter, and 2 infants tragically died. But when our FDA moved in and actually shut the factory down, it exposed this terrifying structural vulnerability.
Right, because of the monopolies.
Exactly. Because of how our government awards these WIC contracts, Abbott essentially held a total monopoly on domestic formula production.
So shutting down one single factory caused a literal nationwide famine for infants.
Yeah. Our government had to invoke the Defense Production Act and fly military cargo planes to airlift formula from Europe just to feed American citizens.
It's wild. It proved that a monopoly in a critical supply chain is a massive national security risk.
But wait, let me push back for a second. If our FDA is primarily doing post-market surveillance and our corporate supply chains are that heavily consolidated, why aren't companies cutting corners every single day?
That's a fair question.
Like, if federal inspectors aren't constantly knocking on the door, what is the actual deterrent keeping our food safe?
Honestly, the American legal system.
You mean the lawyers?
Yes, the absolute terror of plaintiff attorneys. What keeps food executives up at night isn't just the threat of a regulatory warning letter from the FDA.
Right.
It is the threat of a catastrophic class action lawsuit and massive punitive damages. If a company acts with gross negligence here, law firms will assemble thousands of victims and sue that corporation into total bankruptcy.
Those are the financial guillotine.
Exactly. The fear of complete corporate annihilation through the courts is actually the most powerful enforcement mechanism in our country.
And you know, that domestic fragility, that realization that a single point of failure can collapse an entire system, that's exactly what governments are now recognizing on a global scale.
100%.
The era of unchecked free trade is dead. We are now navigating the brutal reality of 2026, which is totally defined by this new economic nationalism.
Capital and governments are just operating on a completely different logic today. National security and supply chain resilience are overriding free market efficiency across the board.
Yeah, and we can see this geopolitical restructuring happening in real time across multiple flashpoints. Like, look at the Middle East right now.
It's a powder keg.
Trump just announced that a U.S.-led peace committee has managed to reach an agreement to disarm Hamas, which on its face is a massive shift for the stability of Gaza.
It is, but the tension with Iran is accelerating rapidly in the exact opposite direction.
Yeah.
Trump has basically abandoned the traditional diplomatic waiting game with Iranian negotiators. Right now, Washington and Israel are planning targeted, heavy strikes directly on Iranian energy infrastructure.
Which means their oil refineries and pipelines.
Exactly. The whole mechanism here is economic strangulation. If you destroy their refining capacity, you basically choke off the capital funding their military operations.
But Iran isn't just sitting there. They are retaliating asymmetrically by intercepting oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz.
Right.
They are using one of the world's most critical maritime shipping lanes as leverage, and the global markets are fully pricing in that fear. Brent crude just shot up to $90 a barrel.
And we are seeing that same hyper-focus on risk containment in our defense policies regarding Ukraine.
Oh, the Patriot missile situation.
Yeah, Trump is currently stalling the authorization of a brand new Patriot missile factory over there. And if the goal of our alliance is to arm them, stalling a factory seems counterproductive, right?
Right, until you look at the technology transfer risks.
Exactly. Our government is terrified of tech blowback. A Patriot system is not just hardware. It is a very dense network of highly classified radar algorithms, frequency hopping arrays, and target discrimination software.
Right, it's our top-tier stuff.
So if we authorize a manufacturing plant on Ukrainian soil, we are placing our most advanced aerospace blueprints directly into a volatile war zone. If that facility gets overrun, or if schematics leak, foreign adversaries wouldn't just capture a single missile.
They get the whole playbook.
They would capture the methodology to reverse engineer and defeat our entire missile defense shield.
And Ukraine is adapting to those hardware limitations by leaning heavily into commercial alternatives. Like Kyivstar, their largest telecom provider, just formed this deep partnership with Starlink.
Right.
The goal is to keep the nation's internet online, even when their physical power grid is destroyed by airstrikes. We are literally watching commercial space networks physically maintain a nation's sovereign communications infrastructure.
It's a whole new world. And that massive restructuring of capital, it's even hitting the sports world.
Oh, yeah, I saw this.
FIFA is currently locked in an outright civil war with UEFA over a $20 billion plan to privatize their commercial operations.
$20 billion.
Yeah. Every global institution is aggressively hunting for new revenue streams and fighting for total control over their intellectual property.
But honestly, nowhere is that fight for sustainable revenue more apparent than in Silicon Valley. To all our Sip&Talkers listening, the Magnificent Seven tech giants are no longer a monolith.
The band has officially broken up.
They really have. Investors have completely snapped out of their blind worship of anything attached to the letters A and I.
Thank God. The market is finally demanding proof of concept. These companies are burning unprecedented amounts of cash on capital expenditures, or CapEx, just to build out massive data centers.
Right, and Wall Street is finally asking, like, hey, how does building a massive server farm translate into actual profit? Show us the receipts.
And Amazon is the one currently showing the receipts.
Oh, they are completely dominating the space right now. AWS, their cloud computing division, is accelerating toward a $1 trillion annualized revenue target.
That number is just hard to comprehend.
It is. They're spending a staggering $220 billion in CapEx for 2026 just to build AI infrastructure. But their stock is up 15%.
Because they can prove it's working.
Exactly. They can prove that those servers are actively generating sustainable recurring revenue from their enterprise clients.
Apple, on the other hand, is experiencing the exact opposite reality right now.
Oh, yeah.
Their stock just suffered a 10% crash, which is their worst single trading day since the 2020 COVID panic.
And it wasn't even a product design issue, right?
No, it wasn't because consumers disliked their new products at all. It was a pure operational failure. Tim Cook, who is stepping down on September 1st, by the way, had to admit on an earnings call that they massively misjudged their supply chain dynamics.
They didn't secure enough chips.
Exactly. They did not secure enough advanced processors and memory chips. So they have immense consumer demand, but they physically lack the silicon to manufacture enough iPhones and Macs to actually fulfill it.
It is a stark reminder that even the absolute kings of logistics can stumble hard when hardware supply chains tighten up. But if we're talking about structural collapses in the tech space, the Leopold Aschenbrenner story is like the ultimate cautionary tale of this new era.
Oh man, Leopold Aschenbrenner, he's a 24-year-old former OpenAI employee who launched this hedge fund called Situational Awareness.
Right.
He basically rode the initial AI hype wave, pushing his fund to a massive $450 billion valuation. But he built that valuation using extreme leverage.
Okay, for anyone listening who doesn't track institutional trading every day, how exactly did a 24-year-old blow up a fund of that size so quickly?
Well, leverage is essentially borrowing money to amplify your potential returns. Aschenbrenner was using 4 to 5x leverage. So for every $1 of actual capital his fund held, he borrowed $4 more from brokers to buy more tech stock.
Which is a brilliant strategy when the market only goes up.
Exactly. But when tech stocks wobbled and dropped, the overall value of his portfolio shrank, and the brokers panicked. They issued a massive margin call, essentially demanding he deposit billions in cash immediately to cover potential losses.
And he didn't have the cash.
He didn't have the cash. So it triggered a forced liquidation, wiping out $350 billion in value almost instantly. His fund collapsed all the way down to $100 billion before Ken Griffin's Citadel swooped in to buy the distressed assets at rock bottom.
That is just terrifying. But wait, I have a question about all this tech containment stuff.
Yeah.
We are spending massive political capital and rewriting our whole foreign policy to build this quote-unquote digital wall to keep advanced AI chips out of the hands of foreign competitors, right?
Right. That's the whole goal.
But then you look at Moonshot, a major Chinese AI firm. They didn't even bother trying to smuggle hardware across borders in suitcases.
Yeah.
They literally just logged on to Alibaba's cloud network and rented the computational power of 20,000 of NVIDIA's most advanced Blackwell chips.
Yeah, because the physical hardware never actually crosses a border. The data just travels over global fiber optic cables.
Exactly. So if foreign developers can just rent our absolute best computational power in the cloud, Does our digital wall even exist? Or are our politicians just writing regulatory rules for a physical world that the tech sector has already bypassed?
Man, that is the defining question for our lawmakers right now. We build these incredibly complex defense systems, whether it's an 800-page FDA regulation, a strict export control on microchips, or, blocking a Patriot missile factory and human behavior, or just a clever cloud computing account finds the crack in the foundation.
It always does.
It perfectly highlights the high-pressure rhythm of our geopolitical landscape. We're seeing Trump's highly pragmatic, leverage-based logic shaping everything from the Strait of Hormuz to defense contracts, focusing purely on national resilience.
Well, today's conversation was packed with a massive amount of information, from how a single bottle of oil is judged under completely different national regulations, to how our American legal system polices food safety, all the way to understanding the underlying mechanics of 2026's global geopolitics and financial restructuring.
Yes, we covered a lot. And, our original intention in producing Sip and Talk has never been to endorse any specific political stance or party platform.
Never.
Our goal is just to lay out the cold, hard facts and the data. Because when we can clearly see the gaps in regulations, the limitations of our systems, and how the international chessboard actually operates, it just becomes much harder to be manipulated by emotional algorithms and social media memes.
Exactly. Opening up the facts and data is all about helping everyone cultivate their own independent thinking skills so we can all see the reality of the international landscape clearly.
Absolutely.
If you have any thoughts on the topics we discussed today, or if there is a specific subject you want us to dive into next, please feel free to send us an email or leave a comment below. And if you enjoyed Sip and Talk today, make sure to subscribe.
And before we sign off, we want to enthusiastically remind everyone to check out our old friend Mickey's YouTube channel, Mickey to Life.
Oh yes, definitely check it out.
He just posted some amazing new travel vlogs, and honestly, after breaking down carcinogens, military strikes, and massive margin calls, watching his travel adventures is just the perfect way to decompress.
It really is. But before we go, I want to leave you with this one thought. We spent all this time and energy arguing about physical borders, whether it's oil shipments crossing a strait or microchips being loaded onto cargo planes.
Right.
But if a 24-year-old can wipe out $100 billion on a laptop, and a foreign company can just rent our best AI over the cloud, what happens when our digital infrastructure becomes so borderless that physical regulations basically become completely unenforceable? Who actually governs the cloud? Something to think about.
Wow. Great point.
See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.